The villagers, gripped by fear and fueled by the words of these three women, began to chant, "Burn her! Burn her! Burn her!" Once the strong men lit the kindling and the wood was set ablaze, Amina screamed in horror as tears fell on her face. Once upon a time, in a small, peaceful village, tucked beside a grand and mysterious forest, there lived a girl named Amina. Now, Amina was no ordinary girl. Her beauty was like the sun shining over the river at dawn, and her kindness spread as wide as the plains. She had a smile so warm that people felt lighter just by being near her, and her gentle way of helping anyone in need made her beloved by all. "Amina, Amina," the children would call as she passed, eager for her to join in their games. The elders would smile and shake their heads, saying, "That girl was surely sent as a blessing." She was a joy to everyone in the village. But despite all her good traits and the admiration she inspired, Amina remained unmarried. The young men of the village watched her with longing, yet, one by one, they would leave, as if afraid of something they could not see. The villagers wondered and whispered among themselves, for how could a girl like Amina not have a husband? But there was a secret that not even Amina knew. Her parents, Mama Ayana and Baba Kato, had prayed and pleaded for many years to have a child. They had fasted, made offerings, and even called upon the spirits to bless them with just one child. "If we could just have a child, we would be forever grateful," they cried. One night, as they lay under the soft light of the full moon, a powerful spirit visited them in their dreams. This was no ordinary spirit. This was Ingali, the god of the forest, whose presence made even the oldest trees bend their branches in respect. "Your prayers have reached my ears," he said, his voice deep and commanding like the rumbling of a thunderstorm. "I shall give you a daughter, a child who will be a blessing to you and your village. But there is one condition." Mama Ayana and Baba Kato listened eagerly, their hearts pounding. "When she is grown," Ingali continued, "she must come to me. She shall be my bride, as she will be born through my blessing." Mama Ayana and Baba Kato could hardly contain their joy. They bowed in their dreams, thanking Ingali over and over, promising that they would agree to his terms. And so, a few months later, little Amina was born. Her parents poured all their love and care into raising her. But as time went by, they forgot the promise they had made. They never told her of her fate, and Amina grew up free of any knowledge of what awaited her. She would spend her days fetching water from the river, helping her mother with the harvest, and bringing food to the elders who were too weak to gather it themselves. Her heart was as big as the sky, and everyone in the village saw her as a blessing. Everyone except three women who would soon turn against her. As Amina grew into a young woman, her kindness and beauty continued to shine. People would greet her with smiles as she helped the elders, tended to her family's crops, and played with the village children. But not everyone looked upon Amina with such warmth in their hearts. Three village women, Halima, Zuri, and Adana, began to look at her with eyes full of jealousy. And oh, that jealousy burned like a hidden flame. Each of these women had their own troubles. Halima, who had once been Amina's friend, had married a wealthy trader from a nearby town. At first, she had been so happy, thinking her life would be full of fine clothes and good food. But her husband was often away, and she found herself feeling lonely and restless. She began to notice how whenever her husband was home, his eyes would follow Amina as she passed by. "Useless man," Halima whispered to herself, her cheeks hot with anger. "Does he think I am invisible? How dare he look at her like that?" Then there was Zuri, married to a hard-working fisherman who was away on the river every day. Zuri loved her husband, but she sometimes felt neglected and unsure of herself. One day, she overheard her husband and a few other men talking as they mended their nets. "Ah, Amina," he said with a wistful sigh. "That girl has such a pure heart, always helping others." Zuri's heart filled with bitterness. Is she the only one who is beautiful in this village?" she muttered. "This girl will finish us all." And finally, there was Adana. Adana had once been the village beauty. She walked through the village with her head held high, basking in the compliments that came her way. But the years had begun to change her face, and her reflection no longer showed the youthful beauty she had once been so proud of. Whenever she saw Amina, with her shining eyes and graceful steps, Adana felt her jealousy like a thorn pressing into her heart. "What does that girl have that I don't?" she muttered under her breath. "If she continues like this, my own husband's eyes will stray." As these three women grew more and more jealous, they began whispering to one another in secret. "This Amina," they would say, "she's too perfect, don't you think? Too beautiful, too good. There must be something wrong with her." And the more they whispered, the more their suspicions grew, until one day they decided to act. They began spreading little rumors, starting with a gentle word here, a suspicious glance there. "Have you noticed," Halima would say, leaning closer to another woman, "how no man seems to marry her? Could it be that she is cursed?" "Oh, I've noticed," Adana would reply with a sly smile. "No man dares to make her his wife, and yet they all admire her so much. It's strange, don't you think?" One by one, the villagers began to hear the rumors. Whispers floated like leaves on the wind, slipping into the ears of anyone who would listen. Soon, the rumors spread and the suspicion grew. "Amina," they would say with raised eyebrows, "isn't she the one who brings misfortune? No man stays by her side, you know." And so the seeds of doubt took root in the hearts of the villagers. It wasn't long before these whispers turned into action. Whenever a young man tried to court Amina, Halima, Zuri, or Adana would find a way to sabotage his intentions. They would whisper lies, telling him that Amina's beauty was a trap, that her kindness hid a curse. They claimed that misfortune would follow any man who married her. Suitors came, but they did not stay. They left with fearful hearts, believing the poisonous words that had been planted in their minds. Amina, unaware of the rumors, began to wonder why each suitor would vanish without a word. She continued her days with a warm smile and a hopeful heart, but deep inside she felt a sadness growing. "Have I done something wrong?" she wondered as she fetched water from the river or helped her mother with chores. She noticed the strange glances from the village women, the way they whispered and looked away whenever she came near. But, kind as she was, Amina only gave them warm smiles in return, hoping they would see her heart. However, the village women only grew bolder. They began speaking more loudly, no longer hiding their suspicions. "By the great spirits, that girl must be cursed," they would say, loud enough for anyone to hear. "We have suffered sickness, poor harvest, and troubles in our homes ever since she has grown. Surely she is the cause of our misfortunes." And so the villagers turned colder toward Amina. She felt the weight of their stares, the sting of their whispers. It was as if a storm had gathered around her, with dark clouds of jealousy and suspicion following her every step. Little did Amina know this storm was only the beginning. As Amina's suitors continued to disappear, and whispers of curses and misfortunes grew, the villagers' fear and distrust deepened. Each time another young man turned away from Amina, the people became more certain that something dark surrounded her. It was then that Halima, Zuri, and Adana seized their chance to turn the villagers against her completely. "She's cursed, I tell you," Halima would say loudly in the marketplace, her eyes flashing with anger. "Ever since she has come of age, our husbands have been drawn to her beauty, while our village withers with misfortune. The gods are angry, and we all know why. Adana, quick to fan the flames of jealousy, would nod fiercely and shout, "Hey! This girl will finish us all. We have sickness in our homes, crops that refuse to grow, and animals that go missing. Have we ever faced such troubles before?" "Oh, it's true," Zuri added, clutching her chest dramatically. "This girl, hey, she's like a curse upon our land. If we want peace, we must rid ourselves of her once and for all." Oh. Their words spread like fire, and the villagers, already nervous and suspicious, soon became swept up in fear. The elders were called together, and the village gathered to decide Amina's fate. The air was thick with murmurs, tension, and the smell of smoke from the torches the villagers held. As the people's eyes glinted in the firelight, it became clear that they no longer saw Amina as the kind girl who helped the elders and played with their children. To them, she was now a danger, a threat that had to be removed. "It is clear," said one elder, frowning and rubbing his hands together nervously, "that the gods are not pleased with us. The sickness, the crop failures, they are signs. Signs that we must make a sacrifice to appease them." "Let us not wait any longer," cried another, her face full of worry. "If we do nothing, surely our village will fall into ruin. We must act to save ourselves and our families." At these words, Halima stepped forward, her eyes gleaming. "Then we must burn her," she said, her voice steady and hard. "Only by fire can we cleanse our village of this curse." "Yes," Ziri cried out, her voice sharp with bitterness. "Burn her at the stake, and let the gods see our devotion. Let them know that we have cast out the curse among us." Adana raised her fist, her face twisted with envy. "This girl has brought us nothing but misfortune. We must do what is necessary for the good of our people." The villagers, gripped by fear and fueled by the words of these three women, began to chant, "Burn her! Burn her! Burn her!" The chant grew louder, echoing through the night like a dark song. The strong men of the village, who before loved to gaze at Amina's beautiful face and curvy body, now handled her roughly as they tied her against a stake and lined it with kindling and firewood. The crowd's chants increased with fervor as they watched Amina struggle against the stake. Once the strong men lit the kindling and the wood was set ablaze, Amina screamed in horror as tears fell on her face. When Amina's parents, Mama Ayana and Baba Kato, finally reached the crowd, their hearts filled with dread. Rushing forward, they fell to their knees in front of the elders, their eyes full of tears. "Please, no," Mama Ayana cried, her voice breaking. "She is our only daughter. She has done nothing wrong. She is no curse. She is a blessing." Baba Kato raised his hands, his voice trembling. "By the gods, I beg you, show mercy. Mina is innocent. She has only helped this village. She has never brought harm to anyone." For a moment, the elders looked uncertain, their faces clouded with doubt. They glanced at the crowd, at the flames flickering in their torches, and then back at Amina's weeping parents and Amina, who was still screaming from the heat of the fire. Finally, one elder raised his hand, quieting the crowd. "Perhaps we need not take her life," he said slowly. "Perhaps we can satisfy the gods by casting her out, by sending her away." The crowd murmured, and the three women's faces darkened, but Halima forced a smile, knowing that if Amina was banished, she would still be gone for good. "Yes," she said with a nod. "If she leaves our village, the gods may yet forgive us." And so it was decided. Instead of burning her, the villagers would exile Amina, sending her away from her family and all she had ever known. With torches in hand, they surrounded her and released her from the stake. Her clothes were singed by fire, and her body trembled in horror and fear. Tears still streamed down her eyes. She looked around at the faces of those she had known all her life, feeling her heart break as their eyes held no warmth, only fear and anger. "You must leave the village now," said an elder firmly. "Cross the stream into the forest and do not return. The gods have spoken." Amina looked to her parent, their faces wet with tears, and saw the pain in their eyes. With nothing but the clothes she wore, she turned and walked slowly toward the edge of the village. She crossed the stream and stepped into the dark, towering trees of the forest, leaving behind the only world she had ever known. As she disappeared into the shadows, her parents' cries faded into the night, and the villagers, feeling both relief and guilt, turned back to their homes. But little did they know the gods had been watching all along, and there was one god in particular waiting for Amina deep within the forest. Amina walked slowly, her heart as heavy as the night sky above her. The forest loomed ahead, dark and unfamiliar, but there was no turning back. She could hear the murmuring voices of the villagers behind her as she crossed the stream that marked the village boundary, the cold water soaking her ankles and chilling her to the bone. Her parents' faint cries echoed in her ears, but they grew softer with each step she took away from the only home she had ever known. With only the clothes on her back and her bare feet treading lightly on the forest floor, Amina ventured deeper into the shadows. Around her, the trees seemed to stand taller and thicker, as though they were watching her with knowing eyes. The air grew cool and still, and soon the only sounds were the gentle rustling of leaves and the quiet crunch of her footsteps. She felt small and alone, swallowed up by the vastness of the forest. By the time she could no longer hear the village, her heart was bursting with sadness and fear. She sank to her knees by the roots of a great ancient tree, its branches stretching high into the sky. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged her knees, feeling the weight of her sorrow press down on her. "Why?" she whispered into the darkness. "What have I done to deserve this? Why do they hate me so?" The night was silent, and the stars above glimmered faintly through the canopy, offering no answers. She closed her eyes, trying to remember happier times, the faces of her parents, the laughter of the village children. But all that remained now were the angry chants and accusing eyes of the people who had once been her friends. The pain in her heart was sharper than any thorn. As she wept, she heard a faint sound behind her, like a gentle breeze stirring the leaves. She opened her eyes and looked up to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a man, tall and graceful, with eyes that shone like ambers in the dark. His clothes were simple, yet he moved with a quiet strength, as though the forest itself had given him life. "Why do you cry, child of the village?" he asked in a voice that was warm and deep, like the rumbling of distant thunder. Startled, Amina wiped her tears and looked up at him, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over her. "I am cursed," she said softly, her voice trembling. "My village believes I have brought misfortune upon them. They wanted to burn me," she shuddered, recalling the torches and the angry faces. "But my parents pleaded for mercy, and so they sent me away." The man nodded, his eyes full of understanding. "The villagers have done you wrong," he said gently. "They are afraid, and fear can cloud the heart, making people forget kindness." He knelt beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "But you are safe here. The forest is my home, and it can be yours as well." Amina looked at him, her heart filling with gratitude and curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man's lips curved into a small smile, and he looked up at the trees, as though drawing strength from them. "I am but a traveler," he said, "one who knows the ways of the forest." He met her gaze, his eyes gleaming. "Come with me, and I will show you how to live in this place. I will teach you to gather food, to build a shelter and to understand the secrets of the trees. Though she was filled with sorrow, Amina felt a flicker of hope. She nodded, rising to her feet. The traveler reached out a hand, and she took it, feeling a warmth spread through her as though a light had been kindled in the darkness. Over the next days and nights, the man taught Amina the ways of the forest. Together, they wandered through hidden paths and gathered fruits and herbs, the man showing her plants that healed and others that nourished. She learned to listen to the songs of the birds and to understand the rustling of leaves. She found peace in the cool shade of the trees, and gradually her heart began to heal. And though she did not yet know it, the man who guided her was no ordinary traveler. He was Ingali, the god of the forest, who had watched over her from the day she was born. He had waited patiently for her to find her way to him, knowing that her journey was not one of fate alone but of choice. In the days that followed, Amina's life in the forest transformed from one of sorrow to one of discovery and growth. Every morning, she awoke to the sounds of birds chirping and leaves rustling, with the sunlight filtering through the thick canopy above. And each day, the mysterious traveler was there, waiting patiently to guide her deeper into the heart of the forest. Ingali, as she would one day come to know him, was gentle and patient in his teachings. He showed her how to gather berries from hidden bushes and where to find roots that nourished and strengthened her body. He led her to clear streams where she could drink the freshest water and taught her to listen to the whispers of the trees, the silent guardians who had stood watch for centuries. At first, Amina moved slowly, her heart heavy with memories of the village and her family. She often grew quiet, her mind wandering back to the people who had cast her out and to the parents who had fought to save her. But each time she grew sad, Ingali would place a comforting hand on her shoulder and say, "Be here, child of the forest. This place is yours, and the forest holds no judgment." Over time, the forest's beauty began to heal her wounded heart. She felt a strange peace here, unlike anything she had known in the village. The trees stood tall and steady, their branches reaching out like welcoming arms. She began to feel like she belonged, not to a village of people who feared her, but to this vast and ancient world of trees, rivers, and sky. As she wandered through the woods with Ingali, Amina found herself sharing her story. How she had always wanted to make people happy, how she had felt their love turn to anger and fear, and how lost she had felt when they cast her out. Ingali listened with a quiet patience, never interrupting, his gaze soft and understanding. One afternoon, as they sat beside a stream, Ingali turned to her with a thoughtful look. "Amina," he said gently, "do you know that your heart is like this forest?" Amina looked at him puzzled. "What do you mean?" she asked, her fingers tracing patterns in the water. "The forest is strong and peaceful, yet it is also full of mystery and hidden power," he replied, his eyes glinting with a light that seemed almost otherworldly. "Your heart holds both kindness and strength, and just as the forest does not change for anyone's approval, neither should you." Amina felt a warmth spread through her as his words sank in. She had spent so long trying to please everyone, trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect friend. But here, in the heart of the forest, she was learning to simply be herself. For the first time in her life, she felt understood. As the days turned into weeks, Amina found herself growing closer to Ingali. His presence became a comfort, like the steady warmth of the sun on a chilly day. She noticed how he moved with grace and ease, blending into the forest as though he was a part of it. She admired his quiet strength, his kindness, and his wisdom, and she began to feel something she had never felt before, a deep, steady affection that grew with each passing day. One evening, as they watched the stars glitter above, Ingali turned to her with a question. Amina, he began, his voice soft. If you had the choice to stay here in the forest with me, would you take it? Amina felt her heart flutter, a feeling both thrilling and unfamiliar. She looked at him, her gaze steady. Why would I not choose you? She asked, her voice a gentle whisper. Here I have found peace. I have found understanding. With you, I feel seen, truly seen. Ingali smiled, his eyes shining with a warmth that made Amina's heart skip. Would you choose me, he asked, even if I were not the man who you see before you, even if I were more than what I seem? That is where we end our story for the day, dear readers. Please make sure you like this video, that you subscribe to my channel for the continuation of this beautiful story. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next installment of the story. Bye!